So,
Hate to interrupt, but we're ready to start the service.
good.
Thank you.
Good morning and welcome to the UUFA. I want to thank you for joining us today in the fellowship hall and also in virtual space. Thank you for continuing to follow the safety guidelines and taking care of each other. As much as we enjoy sharing hugs and handshakes, elbow bumps and friendly greeting are the safest greetings right now. If you are joining us through Zoom today, I recommend that you set your viewing option to speaker view for the best viewing experience and to mute your speaker. If you are in Fellowship Hall, it's wonderful to see you in 3 dimensions, and it will help us if you would disconnect from your personal technology and leave the bandwidth for the fellowship broadcast. We continue to learn the intricacies of combining in-person and virtual streaming, and thank you for your patience in this as we learn. It's good to have you all with us today. This morning, Sue Kirsten has a special announcement.
Today, I'm here to say thank you. Thank you to all 77 families on this list who jumped right in and right on board with their financial commitment to the fellowship for next year. A large majority of these people have accepted our new designation of sustaining giver, meaning their commitment is automatically renewed in a year unless they choose to make a change. This is awesome, really. Of course, like any published information, the list is already out of date, but in a good way. Bradley tells me we've had another approximately 15 responses in the last couple of days. So a sincere thanks to all of you recent respondents as well, and know that you will be added to this list shortly. If you are a person who hasn't gotten around to responding yet, do check out David Slade's video in this past Friday's weekly email. As a self-described procrastinator, David has invited other pledge procrastinators to unite. The video will make you smile wherever you are in the process, and if you need a nudge, this may be it. Thank you for listening, and thank you to everyone who is participating so generously. Thanks.
Once upon a time, Fanfare for the Common Man was played as a call for congregants to put down their coffee cups because the service was about to begin. We remember that music as we welcome you into the service. It's a recent tradition to begin each week's service by the ringing of the chime 3 times, once to awaken the chime, once to open our minds, and once to open our hearts. Today, on this first month of Sundays, celebrating our 75th anniversary, we light our chalice in honor of those who founded this fellowship and those who have kept its flame alight for 3/4 of a century. Our opening song this morning is "Come Sing a Song with Me."
Every group of people, every family, every tribe, every nation with a common history that begins before the memories of those who live in it, gathers and cherishes and passes on to succeeding generations the tales of founding heroes and of those who have given time, talents, and treasure to maintain the group they honor and value. These tales gather new details and assume new significance with each retelling, and gradually become the myths that help glue the group together. These myths create a stronger bond with each retelling, and so this morning we are strengthening that bond by sharing with you a few of the myths and stories of our fellowship heroes. Once upon a time, in 1946, a small group of people in Ames, Iowa, who were interested in Unitarianism, met in their homes every other week for a discussion. Let's start our history journey with a time frame. Our 75 years is older than the UUA, which began when the Unitarians and the Universalists merged in 1961.
Since we've been merged for 60 years, I think we should tell everyone how you can tell a Unitarian from a Universalist, by theology, that is.
Oh, you mean how Universalists believe that God was too good to damn anyone?
And the Unitarians believed that they were too good for God to damn them.
I also remember hearing that the Unitarians had more members, but not much money.
Whereas the Universalists had a large bank account, but dwindling membership.
So a match made in heaven, so to speak.
And we are older than the fellowship movement, which began in 1948 as an experiment to draw new members to the Unitarian ranks.
Did you know that beginning in 1946, Reverend Grant Butler came here every month from Des Moines to conduct services for the folks who gathered in each other's homes?
And then he went on to Boston to start the fellowship movement. He encouraged us to formally become a fellowship. We like to think we were the first.
Well, for sure we were one of the first.
The UUFA has always maintained a myth of uniqueness, but the reality is we have always reflected society in many ways. For example, for the first 20 years, all our presidents were men, with the single exception of founding member Edna Gowans. And all the RE directors have been women right up to the present day. In 1966, Barbara Kerber was elected the first woman president of the modern era over the strenuous objection of at least one member of the nominating committee. And this is a great time to tell a tale about her and her husband, George, who reveled in his role as breaker of norms.
Well, George was a liberal thinker, a professor of electrical engineering, and he believed in eating, let's say, unusual sources of protein like crickets and beetles and other insects.
Once he and Barbara were entertaining guests at their home. George was holding forth on a lawn chair in the backyard.
George picked up a beetle and was gazing at it thoughtfully when Barbara came out of the kitchen and said, "George, lips that touch that shall never touch mine."
George put the beetle carefully back in the grass.
Our BME, that is before minister era, lasted 40 years until we called Sidney Morris, the Reverend Sidney Morris, as our first minister in 1986. So our BME is longer than our ME, that is the minister era, of 35 years. During those first 40 years, members did everything. We maintained our physical space ourselves.
And I remember that Claire Keller used to go up and down mowing the lawn every week or two all summer long.
And then occasionally on Sunday, he put on the George Washington costume made by his wife, Marilyn, and give us a thoughtful presentation on 18th century theology.
And there used to be sort of fellowship hall cleaning parties on Saturday mornings, sort of like the way we do gardening on summer Saturdays now.
And for many years, Lotus Miller faithfully watered all our indoor plants each week. And then on Sundays, shared her knowledge and love of natural world with our kids in RE.
And we have always, for all of our 75 years, held sacred our coffee hour, whether before, after, or between services, when we started having 2 of those each Sunday. We will be so glad to return to that tradition.
For literally decades, Hazel Hammer got up early every Sunday morning to open the building and start the coffee.
She was the undisputed queen of the kitchen. She, along with her hazelnuts, a group inspired by her dedication, fed our bodies as well as our souls.
Yes, breaking bread together has always been an important part of our get-togethers. We had whole group potlucks, soup lunches, and summer picnics. What good food we had.
Oh, and remember those Easter breakfasts. Most of us didn't accept the Christian theology of Easter, but we certainly looked forward to the mountains of scrambled eggs and ham that were provided on Easter morning.
That was prepared for some years by the Karras and Warman families, with Roy Warman's luscious homemade cinnamon rolls. Yum.
And during BME, doing everything meant doing all the Sunday morning services too. For more than 20 years, we didn't have a physical home of our own.
When we outgrew our homes, we rented space in what is now the ISU administration building.
We affectionately called that era the Church of the Cardboard Box, since we had to bring all our own supplies every Sunday, except, of course, for the nickel coffee from the machine in the hall.
In the beginning, the Sunday services resembled lectures given by either a member or someone invited from the outside.
And that was followed by a, quote, discussion, in which Gordon Danielson always made the first observation.
And Charlie Hammer, Hazel's husband, was always there ready with a rebuttal.
Eventually, though, program responsibilities became a group effort, and the program chair became part of the path leading to the presidency of the fellowship. For a few years, we were led by a triumvirate nicknamed Bob the Father, Bob the Son, and Bob the Holy Ghost. Bob Frank, Bob Glass, and Bob Richards, respectively. Under their direction, programs became more diverse and creative.
We even had a program exploring the music of the Beatles as a source of spiritual enrichment.
And one about the theology of baseball, and another about lessons learned from the Old West.
As is true with all myths and origin stories, the memories of our members are not quite the same. We, however, have an excerpt from a BME Sunday program about our history that was used at a past fellowship anniversary. It was written to have the whole fellowship involved, and so we're asking all of you to join in. The left and right sides of the group in Fellowship Hall will be directed by Jane and Sarah. Those of you at home can choose which side to read, or just join in the whole thing if you would like. So I'm going to divide, look at how many people are here. We're going to go right down here. The next two will be the people on the left, and everybody will go over there, the people on the right. Jane?
Sometimes as a group, we struggled with differences.
Some people left because the fellowship did not meet their expectations.
Some left before they had to move away.
One year, we lost 30 members, half of our total membership.
We called a meeting to decide what to do with a small amount of our treasury, if we should disband.
But at the meeting, Gordon Danielson said, "Let's start a building fund."
So we bought
Then we met an instructor from the architecture department named Thor Bjornstedt
He excited our imaginations.
and had his students draw up sample building plans for us.
Then he offered to be our architect.
Some felt he enhanced our vision.
Others felt he had pulled wool on our eyes.
He left us with unbuildable plans.
But with lots of enthusiasm.
Technical details delayed us,
While building costs were rising.
but in the fall of 1969, we finally had our groundbreaking.
In the succeeding months, our building grew.
Like a concrete flower,
Later, we softened it with real flowers and trees.
it took us years to settle into our new home.
Here, we were fraught with divisiveness.
Since it stood empty all week, we agreed to rent it to a free school on weekdays.
That was a painful year, fraught with divisiveness.
But it taught us that we had to learn how to make our building useful to those whose aims were compatible with ours. Susan Franson is going to describe now how we came to host one particular group.
One thing that I would identify as unconsciously assumed was that we would make a difference in the community, and we would use the fellowship as an organization and later as a building to foster groups that needed people or space, including starting a women's theater group and housing a free school. The most important and least known of these groups were the gay and lesbian groups. Roy Warman, as chair of the counseling department, came to the board in the early 70s and announced that there was a group of students that needed a place to meet and was having trouble finding one because of prejudice against them. He proposed that we not only give them space for meetings and parties, but charge only half the usual rental. Thus, Gays and Lesbians of Ames, GLA, was born. Because of our loose structure, the only person who knew when they met or whether they had adequately cleaned up after their parties was Hazel Hammer, who had the key they needed to check out and return to her. Because our building was virtually unused for anything else, they could discreetly meet without being disturbed. The women's dances followed a similar pattern in the 70s, although these were better publicized. One of the most influential groups that grew out of GLA was the Ames Civil Rights Task Force. This was inspired by the initiative of a gay law student who was aware of discrimination against gay students in rentals. When he brought the issue to the Ames Human Relations Commission, he was told they couldn't do anything about it because the Ames Human Relations Ordinance didn't include protection against discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation. And the only way they could address it was to amend the ordinance. The commission, which was headed by Russ Pounds, a Black faculty member and friend of Charlie Hammer, declared that this was not in the jurisdiction of the commission because it did not yet have wording to protect against discrimination based on sexual orientation. The mayor at the time was an Episcopal priest, and he was immediately pressed by the conservative members of the clergy to reject any such ordinance change. The UUFA did not have a minister at the time, so if the fellowship was going to support a change, we would have to organize in order to do it. It was also clear that we were the organization to do it. Other churches were silent, and when invitations went out to university leaders to take a stand, not one accepted. So Kathy Hickok and Nancy Tepper and a couple of others with me formed the Ames Civil Rights Task Force to be ready to respond to the nasty ads paid for by the, quote, Citizens Against the Homosexual Privileges Amendment, unquote. We succeeded in persuading a majority of the council to vote to pass the ordinance change, and the success of that campaign drew new members with their energy and talents to the fellowship. Truly, our song had become, "Come, come, whoever you are."
Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of evening, ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, whoever you
Over our 75 years, our fellowship has fostered laughter and celebrations and the dedication of children, parties, potlucks, and weddings. But it has also been a place to share pain and to comfort each other in the face of sorrow and death as well.
We learned to create meaningful celebrations of life when we lost those dear to us.
And we have always found time on Sunday morning to share each other's joys and sorrows.
Milestones have been the beating heart of our fellowship from the beginning. This is the time in our service when you may share with others your joys and concerns. We ask those in Fellowship Hall to step up to the microphone first if they have a milestone to share. And when the people in Fellowship Hall have finished, we will open our virtual space, and Zoom participants will also then be able to share their individual milestones. Please state your name and then your milestone, and I will light a candle for you. For those in virtual space, so we don't talk over each other, when you're finished, let us know that you are. This is our time of sharing.
I would like to light a candle for those who endure and suffer with the effects of domestic violence for their lives.
And I'm Mary Richards. I would like you to light a candle for the 36 or so people who gathered along Lincoln Way in Campustown yesterday to observe the Women's March for abortion rights.
I would like to light a candle for all the wildlife on Iowa Creek. I saw a kingfisher, a blue heron, a great bald eagle, and a woodchuck this past couple of days, and also thank the 30 people who came out to clean up trash this weekend.
We'll now open the milestones for the Zoom people.
Judy, can't you just?
This is Judy. This.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I see Ginny's name up there.
I just suggested that you just unmute yourself and go ahead with your milestone.
Okay. This is Judy Mongan, and I'm letting you know that I have COVID. I'm doing okay. I was tested on Tuesday and I had infusion on Thursday, and I'm going to isolate until next Friday. Thank you. I feel pretty good considering that I have it. Thank you. I'm done.
This is Ronnie Kahn. Am I there?
Yes.
Okay, this is Ronnie Kahn, and I would like to light a candle. I don't know whether it's a joy or a concern, but my youngest son is separated from his wife. And I have been very concerned about him, but his next older brother and his oldest brother tell me he's doing really well. And so this may be a good thing. So it's, I'm just hoping and praying that he'll be okay. Thank you for listening.
I will light one last candle for those milestones that are left unspoken and ask that we hold these milestones, both spoken and unspoken, in our hearts, knowing we never need walk alone. Please let's join in together in breathing together in a moment of silence. As we come out of this moment of silence, we'll listen to the music of Peter Mayer, Everything is Holy.
When I was a boy, each week on Sunday we would go to church, pay attention to the priest, and he would read the holy word and consecrate the holy bread, and everyone would kneel and bow. Today the only difference is everything is holy now. Everything is holy now. Sunday school, we would learn about the time Moses split the sea in two. Jesus made the water wine. And I remember feeling sad. Miracles don't happen still. Now I can't keep track, 'cause everything's a miracle. Everything, everything's a miracle. Wine from water is not so small, but an even better magic trick is that anything is here at all. So the challenging thing becomes not to look for miracles, to finding where there isn't one. When holy water was rare at best, it barely wet my fingertips. But now I have to hold my breath like I'm swimming in a sea of it. It used to be a world half there, heaven's second-rate hand-me-down, but I walk it with a reverent air, 'cause everything is holy now. Questioning science face, say it's not a testament. That'd be very hard to say. See another new morning come, say it's not a sacrament. I tell you that it can't be done. This morning outside I stood, I saw a little red-winged bird shining like a burning bush and singing like a scripture verse. It made me want to bow my head. I remember when church let out, how things have changed since then. Everything is holy now. It used to be a world half there, heaven's second-rate hand-me-down, but I walk it with a reverent air, 'cause everything is whole.
It is good to be together. During BME, we learned how to all share our treasures to maintain the fellowship, instead of depending on a few established folks with deep pockets.
Oh, and Barney Cook, he was our treasurer for years. He taught us to be good stewards, and he got us to start an endowment fund.
Barney also helped us focus on the wider UU world and encouraged us to be consistent pledging members of the UUA.
He connected us with the UUNO, our denomination's office at the United Nations headquarters in New York.
Let's keep Barney and all our generous past founders in mind as we consider our time of sharing. The offertory recipient for October was chosen by the children of the UUFA Religious Education Program. The Ames Animal Shelter is a safe and humane place for the care of homeless, unwanted, lost, injured, and many other animals while owners are sought. The shelter staff loves and cares for the pets brought to them to the best of their abilities and work to maintain responsible adoption programs, promote rabies vaccinations, offer alternatives to animal abandonment, promote spaying and neutering, provide protective custody of animals, and offer community education programs. And you can give your offering in the basket on the way out or at the UUFA website. Thank you for supporting the Ames Animal Shelter.
Did you know that just like the Jewish people were established long before Moses brought down the Ten Commandments, so our UUFA fellowship is older than our 17 countries, which were adopted by the UUA only in 1995. 85, I'm sorry, wrong year. Big mistake.
Instruction on the lawn organized by Dennis Stake. We all wove stakes and ribbons and yarn and other materials to represent the UU principles and the interdependent web of life.
And it stayed there for a week, attracting lots of attention and maybe even some new members.
So how did we get to our present minister era? Another hero is involved. When Irv Klaus was a membership chair, he was convinced that there were many potential UUs in this community who didn't know about us. So he started a campaign to remedy that, and we grew. There's Irv. We grew past the point where we could no longer do everything ourselves without a paid staff. Our first paid staff was an office administrator, Nancy Tepper. Then we realized that we were strong enough to support a full-time minister. That was a time of turmoil and strife because many members harbored bitter memories of their religious upbringings and that they had consciously rejected. Those people wanted to retain the aura of uniqueness that came with the founders, like Jeff Shepherd. Jeff Shepherd, who each year gave a sermon on secular humanism. The last time, just a couple of days before his own death, he gave a speech. He got out of the hospital and gave a speech on secular humanism here at the fellowship. We say he delivered his own eulogy.
I remember when we decided to try a minister. We invited Reverend Dave Sammons to join us for a few weeks.
He made a lot of good suggestions. He also suggested some new rituals, like making homemade bread and sharing it as part of a service.
Talk about stirring up controversy. Some folks objected because it reminded them of the strict rituals that they'd left long behind.
And other people just loved it.
Our building expanded and our creative juices flowed. Just look at how our visual artists members, both professionals and talented amateurs, have brightened our space. Our unique quilts were conceived by Carmen Slater, a fabric artist, to use the fabrics and the sweat equity of the fellowship members in his unique design. Many of us can look at those beautiful, beautiful quilts and see old pieces of dresses and fabrics that we had in our homes. In the end, though, Carmen Slater did most of the work, the actual piecing and quilting, as well as the overall design.
Early on, we created our gallery in the round so we could share our art with the community. Members and other local artists exhibited their work here, and many visitors came for these shows.
ISU art professor Chris Martin designed and built our beautiful podium, and many other members have contributed their artwork and handmade furniture.
Several loyal, active members left our ranks as the minister era arrived, but others came, attracted by the fresh ideas of our first minister, Reverend Sidney Amara Morris.
When Sidney, after several years, decided to move on to a larger congregation, we learned that separation is often difficult, but we began the search process and we tried to fill in the gaps.
For those of you who are relatively new to the UU system, our ministers are not assigned by someone higher up in the organization in Boston. The search process is long and drawn out, typically for 2 years, while the congregation's representatives become a search committee, and they interview and inform possible candidates. Finally, one person is chosen to spend a candidating week with us in our community and meet all of us. At the end of the time, the congregation then votes whether to accept the candidate.
Our candidating week after Sidney left had a really unexpected outcome.
Right. On the final Sunday of that week, the candidate announced the withdrawal of his candidacy.
So we went back into search mode. Luckily, a wonderful interim minister, Reverend Carol Hippokoski, with her calm leadership and her folk-singing husband, John Berquist, came to guide us for 2 years.
We came right up to the end of Carol's time with us without a new candidate, and then we heard about the Reverend Brian Esslinger.
Brian brought us his inquiries into the spiritual side of our faith, his commitment to social justice, and we became founding members of Amos, as it expanded in Ames. Brian's bagpipes, his enthusiasm for life in general, and earning his doctorate while he was here with us and taught classes in religion and philosophy at the Iowa State Religion and Philosophy Department were major contributions.
Brian was our longest serving minister so far.
And when he left us, we named him Minister Emeritus.
Our next interim minister during the search for a new leader was Reverend Charlotte Cowton.
And that brings us right up to date, and our own Reverend Kent McCusick, who brings his dramatic talents from down east to guide our fellowship into the future.
And so we come to the close of this service that sets the stage for our fellowship celebration of 3/4 of a century of existence. We started this service by observing that all human groups, from families to nations, create myths, stories of how to survive, how to love one another, and how to love the earth. How to protect those who protect us and care for us. Stories of men and women who did all those things and taught the rest of us how to do them. And stories of how in the past we as a group survived. How we became who we are. And how we can continue to be a group committed to our principles. Let's keep repeating these stories to each other and to those who join us in the future. They will help us keep our group and our purpose strong. In the end, our stories are our theology, and our stories are who we are.
We extinguish our chalice, knowing that we are all richer for the stories of those who have lived among us, and that our history both tells of our past strivings and expresses our hopes for the yearnings of the future. May it be so. We close with the song by Peter Mayer, Blue Boat Home.
Low below me, I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean. Still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. Sun, my sail, and moon, my rudder, as I ply the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the lights of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat home. I give thanks to the waves upholding me, hail the great winds urging me on. Greet the infinite sea before me, sing the sky my sailor's song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue home. Blue bowl.
And someday, we'll get to sing all those songs together again live. People were just wanting to sing. They're all in our hymnals. We want to acknowledge those who helped put together the service today. And let's also remember that we support who we support financially by visiting the UUFA website or dropping a donation in the basket as you leave the fellowship hall. And remember, we have t-shirts, sweatshirts, and other items that you can purchase to celebrate our 75th anniversary this year. Those in Zoom can remain together in one large room to enjoy conversation, and those in the fellowship hall who want to join in that conversation can go down to room 3, where we have it set up so everybody can talk with each other. Thank you for joining us this morning.